Hey guys, uh, thank you for coming. I'm realizing there's a major lag between the video starting and it reaching you guys. So just know if you message me with any comments or questions, it might take a minute or two for me to see them pop up. Nice to see you, Simon. You're the only one here right now, but I appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, so basically, I'm just gonna get started. Yeah, so I kind of just wanted to show how I learned how to do art on my own. When I started painting, I was a kid. My mom's a painter and she's self-taught. So the process I learned isn't really classical, you know, and it's what I'm going to show you is based pretty heavily on what I learned in New Zealand when I was studying there at their art school. They kind of start with abstract ideas and then move towards realistic art. So the reason I'm doing it this way is because I notice a lot of artists these days, whether it's music or writing or really anything, take their art so seriously. And that's not a bad thing, but sometimes it's important to just remember to kind of goof off and play around and experiment. So that's basically what I'm hoping to do today. So I don't know if you're going to follow along, Simon. You're free to if you want to. I'll repeat this if anyone else shows up. But basically, I've got my paints here, just the primary colors, because that's really all you need. So you got white, red, and I got these at the Dollar Tree, yellow, and blue, and then also black. And you can make every color in the spectrum with just these paints. I might go over the color theory thing later, I don't know. But basically, I'm just going to start going and I'll explain what I'm doing as I'm going. Kind of freeform. I hope it's interesting. If you have any questions or if it's too fast or you're just like, what the heck is going on? Feel free to just leave me a comment. So I've got my $1 canvas from Dollar Tree, and a paper plate for my palette. I've got this towel that I use. You can't really see it, I guess, but I've got this towel that I use to just wipe off my brush before I rinse it in this cup of water. So this is all stuff that I tried to set this up so that it's all stuff that you guys could get at home very easily. You know, a lot of people think art is super expensive and hard to get into, and it's not. I like to say I'm a budget artist. I'm always on such a tight budget, so this is usually how I make do with my art. And I've got this cardboard thing underneath because I'm notoriously messy with art, so that's just for me to protect my desk. Hi, Jackalope. Nice to see you. So basically, I'm gonna show you how I paint what I feel. That's, I know that's a big lofty concept. Again, if this is too much for you guys, just send me a message on Instagram and let me know. So basically, to start with my process of painting, and typically this is what they'll teach you classically, if you have any classical training. What they'll show you is that you start with a base coat. That's pretty typical, because if you just paint your scene over this blank white canvas, it's going to look really, like, two-dimensional and not much depth and just kind of garish, which maybe that's what you want to do, but I usually like to have some layers. And I tend to be a fan of the primary colors, and that's just these, the colors that basically spawn all other colors, yellow, blue, and red. So almost always I start with yellow, and here's here's where some of sort of that experimentation comes in. When I paint, I'm not usually thinking, sometimes I do think of like a still life. You know, I'll just put something in front of me like a, I don't know, a wine glass. I can't think of an example right now, but I'll put something in front of me that is a reference and I'll paint that. Most often though, when I'm painting, I kind of just start with a color that I like and I start just kind of going at it. This is again not usually how people learn art, but I thought it was a useful thing to show you guys. So I always start with a big brush for backgrounds or filling in large spaces, especially this kind of a square brush is great for that. And this is like a Dollar Tree brush. Some of these are really nice. This is one that my mother very kindly gave me from her personal collection. It's like crazy nice, but I also use just this one which cost 50 cents. Anyway, so I'm just gonna, so when I do acrylics, I kind of do like an X thing, and that you'll start to see how it kind of creates this cool texture. I like a lot of texture in my art. Some people prefer to have really smooth sort of clean lines, which is also possible to do. I like to show layers and movement. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of, and I'm feeling happy today, so I guess that's why this is yellow. I'm excited to show you guys some of this stuff. Hi Nicole 1364 and Sar Sarah. I should work on pronouncing your usernames properly. But good to see you guys. So yeah, and then usually so I'll start to kind of blend this out, and so I'll kind of take this dry brush without much paint on it, and I'll just kind of pull it out. I'm going to move these off so it rattles less. And I'll kind of pull it out so it sort of blends. So I've kind of got this top sunny part, and this is, I'll be honest guys, this is actually starting to look a lot like a mural I did in high school. It was a senior year project that I had to do. 120 hours. I think I spent 138 total on this 3-panel mural. And it was very much, you know, sort of a red flame kind of, red and yellow and orange kind of flame colored mural with a lot of patterns and texture. So that's probably what this will kind of turn out like, a mini version of that. So I've kind of got my yellow base down. So at this point I'm going to actually rinse off my brush. So I've got my water, and you just swirl it in there. Pretty self-explanatory if anyone took art in like kindergarten. I've got 2 cups of water, because if I ever go back to using a lighter color, I'm going to want crystal clear water that isn't tainted by like blue. So I've got my yellow, and now this is just, I'm just showing you guys my process honestly. Now I think about what color I kind of want to fill in here. And frankly, I always seem to do this with every painting, but frankly I think I want to add in some red down here. Although I think just applying the red might overwhelm it too much, because I've got this nice light yellow, and if I put red down here it's going to be like nice and light, and then red, angry, so what I'm going to do is actually make orange. So I'll show you guys how to make orange for those of you who don't know, because I know not everyone learned how to mix colors. So orange is a secondary color. You know, I've already covered that red, yellow, and blue are primary colors. So to make orange, you take some red, and you basically mix red and yellow together. And then you blend it, and usually red will way overpower the yellow, so you'll probably have to scoop up even more yellow until you get to the orange color you want. I want kind of a yellow orange, which is more on the yellow side of orange, not so deep red. It's kind of getting there. It's not quite there yet. And I'm still mixing. That's not quite there. And that's a bit better. That's kind of more what I'm looking for. So I will say that with acrylic paint, a little bit goes a long way. Depending on what kind of acrylic paint you get with this Dollar Tree stuff, you kind of need to use a little bit more because it's not very heavy-bodied. But you know what? Acrylic paint is acrylic paint, and that's about it. It's one of my favorite mediums, because if you don't like what you've done, you can let it dry and paint right over it. So I'm going to start at the bottom here, because I know if I start right up here, it's going to make like a harsh line, and I want this to kind of blend together. So I'm just making sure that my camera's still angled right. It is. So, and then maybe as I go, I'll kind of create a gradient effect, but again, the same, just back and forth, sort of X-shaped brush strokes. And as the layers build up, you'll see that this sort of texture looks really cool. And I'm a little nervous about how harsh this line is turning out. So what I'm gonna do, this is a slightly, I know I'm showing you guys slightly advanced stuff, but you know, I know you guys can, I always think that when teaching art or really anything, you know, a lot of people always underestimate what other people can do. You know, especially working as a teacher, you know, I know even from kindergarten how much kids can do. So to help blend this together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dip this dirty orange brush straight into this yellow paint. And this is where what I was talking about earlier about experimentation and play and kind of goofing off comes into play. Because some people, and this is again, not bashing these techniques, this is just how I do it and how I've learned, and how I was able to get past certain roadblocks in my own head. Some people are very concerned when they first start out painting with keeping everything like really clean and really precise and stuff, and just what I'm trying to show you is it doesn't always have to be clean and precise. You can, in fact, I think that the stuff that's kind of messy and I don't know what the word is, just messy, is the most honest and beautiful parts of any piece of art out there. So anyway, I've got my orange brush with yellow paint. Hi, Monica. I think that's your name. So I'm just going to start doing X's, and you'll see that the orange is kind of starting to blend into the yellow a little bit better here. And that makes it a much more subtle transition. And now you can kind of see how that weird, you know, rough brush stroke is kind of blending into the yellow. And this was all this technique is something I learned just through experimentation. And I'm actually gonna add more yellow to my palette here. This is something I learned through experimentation, through just doing this on my own growing up. You know, I didn't necessarily need to go to school for it. I find that there's something really beneficial to just remembering that art is, it's okay for it to be fun. It's okay for it to be uniquely yours and original, and, you know, it's fine and even encouraged to not be perfect all the time in it, because then you'll learn how to do things like this that no one else maybe has done before. So, yeah, I'm very happy with how this is turning out. Hooray! Excuse me. So what I'm actually going to do now, oh, I should show you guys. So I've kind of like gone in with the yellow, and then I've dipped it into some orange, because what I'm going to do is kind of try and, because like I like the depth up here, but down here it's kind of starting to look a little, this is what happens when you just paint on a white canvas. It's kind of starting to look like sort of shallow. You can see through to the white, and it's just kind of losing some of its depth. So I'm just going to take this orange and yellow on this brush and kind of start pulling it down, and that'll fill in some of these sort of white see-through patches and give it a little more depth. Yeah. I feel like Bob Ross. I don't know how many of you guys watch Bob Ross, but if only I had a tree on here, I'd start talking about happy little trees or, you know, whatever. So I'll just kind of fill this out a little bit. And hi, Songs by Tony. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. While I'm finishing this up, I'll just do my plug as an artist. Obviously, I'm thrilled and excited to do this for you guys for free, because I think that it's really difficult for people to really learn about art without having to pay a lot of money these days. But if you happen to feel generous and happen to have the means to do so, there is a link in the Facebook event to my PayPal. If you feel like donating, just even cents or single dollars, that's always appreciated. Because I want to do more stuff like this for you guys. And eventually, what I'm really trying to save up for is equipment to do live music streams for you guys. Because I'd like to do both of those. But I do need to save up more money. So yeah, if you feel like donating to my PayPal, that's great. Otherwise, there's a link in my Instagram bio to all of my music on Bandcamp, on Spotify. You can stream it. You can buy on Bandcamp. You can just, any amount of listening or sharing my music helps support stuff like this. Okay, so I've got a nice background here. So sometimes, once the background is done, sometimes what people will do is let it dry, and then start adding after. So if you let it dry and then excuse me, let me restate that sentence. If you let it dry and then add more details, you'll get, here's an example. This is the life impaired artwork I did for my collaboration with Limbo Joe, the very talented and amazing Limbo Joe. So you can see up here this sort of streaky mess. This was wet on wet paint. So, you know, you get sort of blurred lines and it's fuzzy, and, you know, I love that kind of blending. Down here is more what you get if you put, this is a very abstract, difficult example to show, but this is kind of an example of what happens when you put wet paint on dry paint. You know, you've got these really crisp, you know, perfect, precise lines and not as much blending. So it kind of depends on what you want the piece to look like next. You know, for this one I kind of wanted to reflect the song, like the really harsh, like awful lines sort of blending into this mess of like, where am I, what's going on. Kaylee, hi Kaylee. I know Kaylee, she's my cousin and awesome. And I think she does art too, so you should support her also. She has art on her Instagram. Hope you don't mind me calling you out, Kaylee. So, what I'm going to do, since we have a limited amount of time and I'm not going to literally make you guys watch paint dry, I'm just going to go ahead and add some more to this. I think, since I've got this blending here, I think it needs a little red down here. So what I'm going to do actually to make sure the red doesn't just like overwhelm everything, I'm actually going to take some of this water, and it's okay that this water is orange because the red is just going to go right over that orange in the water. If I had taken that orange water and gone for yellow, then I might have been a little worried, but anyway, I'll get my brush wet and then that'll kind of help the red be a little less saturated when I paint. Then I got the red on my brush, and I'm just gonna, yeah, I like that. And again, this is just by feeling. I just felt like, I just looked at it and I thought, you know, I think red would be a nice addition. You know, and if this doesn't, I've done so many paintings where what I've done hasn't worked out and I've just let it dry and painted right over it. In fact, the high school mural that this is kind of, you know, very much inspired by, there's like 3 paintings under the final layer of the mural that I started and then just hated and painted right over, and no one can tell or see. You know, they only see the final product, but it adds, I don't know, it kind of makes an interesting story for the painting, and it kind of adds its own depth, and it does build up that layering and that color and texture even if you don't really see it. I'm gonna add a little more red, a little more red. Feeling like Bob Ross again. I wish I had his mellow, kind baritone voice. I think my favorite part of Bob Ross was when he would wash his brush and then he'd like do that weird thing where he'd like slap it on the easel. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing, but Mom said that's what you're actually supposed to do with really, really nice brushes if you're like a top-notch painter. It helps them dry and maintain their bristle shape, but that's a different lecture for another time. Okay, so I'm gonna wash off my brush because I think I'm done with this kind of fiery background theme. And now I need to think about what I want to do next. So this is where I need to make a little more, put a little more thought into my decisions. Like, I'd love to add some blue, but if I wanted to add blue, if I wanted to add blue, and I wanted it to stay blue, then I think I would have to let this dry fully. Because right now, if I put the blue onto here, wet on wet, blue and yellow make green. So the blue would turn green up here, and then blue plus red, and this is largely red now. Blue and red make purple. So this would not look blue if I put it on right now. Let me think here. Again, I'm just trying to show you how my process usually works. Trying to show you guys that it's really an accessible thing to do. It's not this crazy complicated, difficult thing. This is the first time I've had to verbalize my thought process, but I'm just gonna go for it. I could create kind of a smoky, cloudy effect with this white paint, and that might be kind of cool. I always wait until the end to do any black, just because black is black. It's gonna like really stand out. So I usually save that towards the end. But I always put a little black in every painting because that was something my mom said growing up, and she learned it from another artist friend. Her artist friend basically said every work of art needs just a little bit of black, even if it's just like a dot somewhere or a couple of lines. And frankly, I agree. For my own art, I like to add just some kind of black. It does something to balance it out, the finished piece. You know what? I'm going to be adventurous today, because that's kind of what I'm trying to show. And I'm just going to do my experimental white cloudy thing, and if I make a mistake, then you guys might see how I can fix it. So, let's see, I need to really, since I'm going for white, I need to really make sure my brush is clean. So what I'm going to do is go into this dirty water and just really rinse it off. And then I'm going to wipe the wet brush on here, and you can see kind of how it still has an orange tint from the water. And then make sure the brush is totally clean. I'm going to put it into this clear water here. And now it's clear, so the white won't be tinged with any other color. And as you can see, I've made a huge mess, as I always do on this paper plate, palette, whatever. I also used way more red than I should have. This is an example of how acrylic goes a long way. I can hear my elementary art school teacher saying, "This is such a waste of paint, Lindsay." So I'm gonna switch to a spare paper plate for my white. I usually do this anyways for lighter colors. I put lighter colors like white or stuff like that on a separate plate. And again, that was way too much paint, so I'm gonna actually like suck it back up into the paint thing. That's what I do when I use too much. Whatever, that's the best I can do. Oh, and I just splattered paint on my face. That's fine. Okay, so I've got my clean brush. I've got my nice clean palette with white on it. So I'm just gonna wing it. I'm gonna wing it, and I have no idea if this is gonna work or not. So we'll do this together. This will be an adventure. So I'm gonna take. I'll show you my technique. Kind of just take some of the white and I'm mixing it with the water in the brush so it's not quite so dense and saturated when I paint it. And I'm kind of mixing it so there's no like thick chunks of paint in there that'll make streaks. This is the first time I've done something like this. So this is probably you'll watch as I paint, you'll probably see how this white turns kind of like a light orange yellow, but that's fine. So yeah, why not try some cloud stuff? So I'm kind of just dabbing like this at the canvas, you know, kind of like just tap, 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 tap. And I'm literally making this up as I go, guys. I'm just trying out things that I've never tried before. And yeah, you can see how it picks up the paint color underneath, but you know what? I'm okay with that in this case. Wow, that was way too much. There we go. All right. You know, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I don't know if I love it, but I don't hate it. And I think I'm going to try and give it a little bit more of an organic line rather than just like straight across. I think I'm going to have it kind of like zigzag down a bit and kind of come up here. Do, 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 do. I usually have music playing, but like I don't have speakers yet for my for my computer, otherwise I'd be playing some of my music for you guys. That would have been a nice bonus to give you guys if you could have some kind of music if you're following along to work too. Okay, this is kind of giving me some ideas. This is what I mean about like experimenting and playing with a painting. I used to get so stuck at moments like this because I would want to just do something absolutely perfect and I'd be so scared of making a mistake. But what I've learned to do over many years of practice is to just try something new and out of the box. And even if it doesn't look good, it helps jumpstart my imagination to sort of think of new things I could possibly do. Okay, so I know that looks kind of weird and abstract and silly, but that's okay. So now I've got my filthy brush and I'm going to use the dirty orange water to wash it off, because if I wash this in my clean, clear cup of water, it'll turn it orange. And I'll do my same thing. I'll dab it on my towel, which you can't see out of sight, but it's over here. And then I'll give it a second rinse in my clear water. Okay. So, I don't like how this looks completely. This obviously is not the final product, but I am liking how these sort of dark lines are showing up here next to all these sort of lighter details. I don't know, it kind of makes me think of grass, like shadows in grassy fields, or, you know, feathers or something like that. So, based on that, I think I'm going to go in with a dry brush. So I'm going to use this fancy brush, and there's no reason I'm using specifically a fancy brush. I'm frankly just using it because it has a similar shape and bristle width as my other dollar store brush. And this one is dry, whereas this one is still wet. So I'm just going to take this clean, straight, dry brush, and I'm basically just going to start tapping it again to see what this does. Because I feel like this stuff needs to be blended in a little bit more. And what I might do, once I'm done sort of stippling this, is that the word? I think it's stippling, I don't know. Maybe Kaylee knows. She's more of a fine artist than me. If she's still on here watching. I might add in some yellow or some red to this. I probably will add in just red. Yeah. I don't like the texture, so I'm actually gonna start doing my little zigzag very loosely here. See, this is what I mean. Like this to me, this looks like garbage right now. But this is how I learned to paint. I just kept trying things and trying things. I've actually kind of got a nice little anecdotal story. Again, from my mom. She taught me basically everything I know about painting. That and my elementary school art teacher, Nan, she was amazing. I was working so hard on this drawing. I was like 9, maybe. And I'm gonna add red while I talk. So I've got red on my brush now. I'm gonna wipe a little of that excess off. And I'm also gonna dip the red into the white. And we'll just see what happens. Anyway, I was working so hard on this drawing as a kid. It was like a park. It was a scene of a park with a guy on a bench, and it was super deep and meaningful to me. I found it years later, and I'm like, what was this about? It's just a guy on a park bench. But I drew a squirrel, and I was one of those kids, I'm sure some of you could relate, who had such a specific vision in their head of like, this is exactly what I want my hand to do if I'm like cutting out this picture. And then because you're a kid and your motor skills aren't good, your hand just doesn't cooperate, and you like cut a square instead of a circle, and you get really mad. Same thing happened to me when I was painting or drawing this squirrel in this park scene. Basically, I messed up the line on the back of the squirrel, and it like did this weird like so it looked like the squirrel was like had like a weird inverse spine. And I started crying. I was a very dramatic child. I was so upset because I had spent so long on the rest of the drawing. And my mom ran in and she's like, what on earth is going on? And it was like, my phrase was scribble scrabble. I said, it's scribble scrabble. I ruined my drawing. It's ruined. I have to start over. I can't believe I did this. And Mom sat down with me and she said, you know, sometimes accidents are supposed to happen. Maybe they're not accidents. You know, sometimes accidents make a painting more of what it's supposed to be. And I know I'm kind of improvising and not telling you guys what I'm doing anymore. I hope that's okay. I'll be more specific in a second here. But so she looked at the painting, or the drawing. I'm sorry. She looked at my drawing, and she looked at my squirrel. She's like, "All right, so you've made a mistake," and she said, "Can you erase it?" And I had drawn this really thick, dark graphite line, and I said, "Absolutely not. No amount of erasing is going to get rid of this super dark line." So she said, "Okay, that's fine. What can you turn the squirrel into instead, using that line?" And that was a question I'd never asked myself in my entire life. What could I make out of this error that is different from what I intended it to be? And honestly, that experience with my mom, that interaction, has stuck with me my whole life. Like, anytime I make a mistake anywhere in life, like, failed an exam in college, I guess that didn't happen often, but like, you know, messed up an exam in college, or did something really embarrassing in front of a boss, like, that I wish I'd never ever done, you know, I just end up thinking, okay, accidents are accidents, but, you know, they kind of have to happen, so what can I do with this instead? So, as you can see, I took my accident with my white paint, which I frankly did not think worked very well, and I kind of covered it up with some red and blended the red into the white, and that's kind of made sort of a... I've kind of got like a... When I look at this, I kind of see a floral rose petal kind of color and texture. So that's new. That's not what I envisioned when I started, but I do like how it's shaping up so far. I see there's 2 of you online. Thank you for continuing to stick with me. I hope it's interesting and engaging. Maybe there's more of you online and my computer's just lagging so much that I can't tell, but regardless, I'm just happy that some of you guys are finding this interesting and I get to show you some of this. So let's see. You know what? At this point, I've got a lot of red going. What I think it really needs at this point is, well, first, a little more red, but what I'm gonna do, and I'll bring my red and yellow and orange palette back. I'll take some black paint. That was way too much black paint. Black paint is like any dark color, you want to start with just a little bit, so that's actually way too much, so I'm not going to blend all of that into the red. But I want to have sort of a darker red. I like this kind of rose-colored magenta petal thing I've got going, so I'm trying to make just a darker red right now. And it's interesting to note that, I mean, this doesn't really matter, I haven't found it apply to me yet, but it can be very difficult to find true black paint. A lot of black paint is just sort of a mishmash of brown and every other color in the rainbow, and when you dilute it, it looks green or kind of blue. In this case, it might be sort of a blue, because you can see that the paint is kind of turning purplish. So I don't know, that's just an interesting fact. Given my process, as you guys have seen, I don't really mind the surprise. So that's actually kind of a brown, oh no, that's actually like a nice dark kind of rosy color, so I like that a lot. So I'm gonna take my brush loaded up with this new color, and I'm gonna go into these sort of lighter areas. Ah, yes, that's much better. In fact, I'm gonna start dabbing in red with the darker red, the light red, the darker red. Yeah, no, I'm very happy with how this is going. I'm sure some of you are like, what on earth is this woman doing? I can't, I can't keep up, and I'm sorry if that's the case. And I feel bad because I even said in the event promo, like, oh, you can follow along, and I'm making this just impossible to follow, but, I hope you at least, you know, feel like you can maybe experiment a little more freely, especially if you're a beginner who's just starting or just interested in getting started in art and painting. Because I find it highly beneficial to kind of learn your own techniques and styles a little bit before you attempt to get really academic and, you know, take like professional courses. Of course, that's just for me, and I just added red. I'm sorry, I keep not telling you what I'm doing. I'm adding just straight red. I did some black strokes, and now I'm putting red on top, and I'm just layering more, and I promise detail will come shortly. And I've actually got a plan now for the final touches. And this is definitely not how any of my college professors would have wanted me to teach you guys to paint, but this is frankly how my mom taught me to paint. She did some very interesting, very moving paintings, all self-taught, and this is what she'd do. She'd layer and layer and layer, and if she saw a certain detail, she'd kind of bring it out with details, and if she didn't like that detail, then she'd kind of just paint over it and try something else, you know, and eventually, how did she say it? She said something very much like Michelangelo. You know, eventually the painting would show itself to her what it needed to be. Like, you know, maybe there was a certain curve that reminded her of a swan neck. She had a painting of two swans that she hung in my parents' bedroom once as a kid. It was just a brush stroke that she had made at random at one point, and so she turned it into a swan. It was a very beautiful painting. So that's very much what I'm doing here, too. I'm kind of just doing brush strokes, and eventually something will show itself to me. And right now I'm seeing just rose petals. I don't know about you guys. I wish I had taken a before picture, because then you could see just how different this looks from how we started. Yeah. I know some people are curious about my whole music process, and this process of painting and art, I apply to every kind of art I do. Every single kind. It's just a useful way to think about. I even think about my life this way. And I just added a little bit of orange to my brush just now, because I'm trying something a little experimental here. I lost track of what I was saying, guys. I'm sorry. Thank you all for bearing with me. And hello, WMRX. Thank you for joining. Let's see. I feel like this needs a little bit of, like, yellow to it. Not a lot, but I'm just thinking about how the base of a rose petal is kind of yellow-green. So I've put red on one side of my brush and yellow on the other side. My hands are shaking because I had way too much coffee this morning. Maybe that's why I'm kind of, like, all over the place here. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I actually don't mind how that looks. And I changed my mind. I don't like how that looks. So I'm going to rinse off my brush here. And I think I just need something darker, sort of a darker red now. And actually what I'm envisioning in my head, I've always been obsessed with hands in art. Even back when I did creative writing as a kid, I would just have so much focus on the hands. I've never understood why. You know, I'd like to draw hands. I just think they're a distinctly human trait, and they do so many different things, and I like the dexterity and the shapes they make. So I often end up using handprints in my paintings. I've even that mural I did in high school that I was talking about earlier, it was the final product. I did half with a brush, and the second half I used just my hands. I painted a whole figure using just finger paint, literally. Just acrylic paint, but with my fingers. Oh, and thanks, Simon. Simon says that's super cool, and I'm glad you think that. So, yeah, I might do something in white with hands. I'll show you what I do with handprints. I don't expect you to go that far if you're not into getting paint on your hands. I don't blame you. But first I just need to finish up this weird sort of black and red rose thing I've got going. Yeah, I did take realist painting and art classes in college, and that's, you know, like, draw this pear and shade it in and, you know, stuff like that, and I was not that good at it, you guys. I'm not, like, that was very interesting. You know, I knew students in those classes who could do the most incredible photorealistic, realist still life paintings. Like, you'd set a bouquet of flowers in front of them, and they'd paint for 5 hours, and at the end they had, like, a perfect bouquet of flowers on their page. Like, every little detail, every highlight and shadow, it was incredible. And mine looked, I'm not even going to show you what mine looked like. It just, not as nice, in my opinion. But it was interesting because then there was only one class where our teacher had us try abstract art. And, like, I knew what to do. I felt more comfortable. I wouldn't say I was, like, great at it. But I saw a lot of the people who were excellent at realist painting just really struggling, you know. And again, that's not, like, a diss on them. Like, they do photorealistic paintings. I mean, I highly admire and respect that. It was just interesting that, you know, there was, like, that trade-off. I don't know. So, I could paint just a regular rose, and it would look, in my own opinion, it would look, okay. But I'm most comfortable and find it easiest to express myself through this kind of experimental textural layering. And thank you, Simon, about the colors. I'm realizing the lighting on my video is a little yellow, which is unfortunate because this is a much more deep red in person. But I hope you guys get the idea. Let's see. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. And actually, now that I've toned down the yellows, I feel comfortable adding in some blue now, because I'm more confident that if I add blue, I'll get kind of a cool indigo purpley effect, rather than blue and yellow making just green. And green and red are complementary colors. They're on opposite sides of the color wheel. Hi, Aural Productions, or Aural Producciones, if that's Spanish. I don't know Spanish, but I know a little bit of it. Anyway, yeah, so, if I did blue with the yellow still in it, it would have looked green, and then I'd have red and green, which isn't necessarily, technically that's a good color combination, a good color palette, but, like, no one uses it because it's most strongly associated with Christmas, so, anyway, now that I've got more of a red burgundy color going, I'm gonna try adding some blue. And again, I'm gonna get another palette. This is just because I'm messy with my palettes. Not most people I see and work with or teach painting to, they're automatically very, very refined and careful, and so don't think you need like 16 plates to paint with. So I'm gonna rinse this again in my very dirty red water. And because I don't want the blue to turn like purple right away, I'm gonna dab my wet brush on my towel. And then I'm gonna rinse it again in the clean, nice, pretty water. And I'm actually gonna dry my brush off a bit on my little towel here. And that was me just testing how wet or dry it is. Yeah, you can see I don't really care if I get paint all over me. In fact, I just accidentally brushed paint on my phone. It's fine. It's fine. Everything will be fine. Alright, so I've got my blue. I'm debating if I want to add some black to the blue, make it a little darker. I think I'm going to do that. Because I feel like this sort of just straight saturated blue with this sort of textured red might be a little, I don't know. I feel like that would kind of clash in a way I don't like. Alright, I'm trying to be more reasonable with my paint portions now. So I'm just gonna gently, here, I'll pull this up so you guys can see. Kind of gently pull these two colors together. Oh, blue is my favorite color. Look at that. It makes me happy every time I see blue. It's just, I like the depth of it and the dimensions that you can get. Red's been coming up lately as a very, very much my second favorite color. I've been using red a lot in my art, and also just when I get dressed in the morning. I like putting color into my wardrobe. I'm just obsessed with color. Alright, so I've got this dark blue. I'm gonna test it right here, see what it looks like. It's a little green, so I'm gonna add a little more blue. Test it again. Interesting. This is what happens with any kind of paint you get. You know, sometimes the color has a little more warmth or coolness. In this case, this is a very cool blue. It's phthalo blue. As you can see right there, phthalo blue, which can vary. I've seen it be very gray. Other times I've seen it be very warm and aquamarine when you water it down. So let me hold this up to my painting. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, first stroke is done. Sometimes if I'm just paranoid, I'll just do a first stroke, and then it's like, well, past the point of no return, now I just have to go for it. Have to keep keep going. I think this will be kind of just like a sparse detail. I don't plan to texture the whole area like I did with the dark red. I didn't like that brush stroke. Or that one. It's fine. Everything's fine. That's what I say to myself all the time, or to my husband, and it drives him crazy. It's fine. It's totally fine. No, it's not, Lindsay. You've got to stop saying that. And I'm like, oh, if I keep saying it, it'll be true, right? And, you know, that's not how the world works, but apparently I'm insane, because I just keep doing that same thing over and over sometimes, hoping it'll work. But it does, at least, you know, that saying does kind of help me with art, like, because it will be fine. Art is a very, very forgiving, like any kind of creative expression really is a very forgiving exercise. At least that's how I view it. As long as you remember that it's okay to learn from your mistakes, and that mistakes are actually really important and helpful in art. Because without that, you don't really get to, you know, things like Impressionism, Van Gogh, or I'm sure pointillism wasn't necessarily just a thing someone just, well, maybe someone did just wing it one day and that worked. I don't know. I'm not well versed in traditional art history. I should work on that. Anyway, I feel like I'm just rambling. Thank you all again for coming and for listening, and for being so patient with me. Got a link in my bio to all my music and stuff if you guys feel like supporting videos like this and my music in the future. Okay, now I'm gonna go over with some just straight up blue. That actually makes me very happy. Yeah, so some of you might be wondering why I even bothered starting with yellow at the bottom, because you can't see it anymore. There's yellow and orange at the base of this painting, and you really can't see it. The truth is you can see it in these areas where it's lighter, and eventually you get an eye for this the more you paint, but you can see the orange and the yellow kind of shining through. And if I had just done this on a plain white canvas, it would have looked very flat. A bit like tempera paint, maybe? I don't know if you guys remember that sort of washable tempera paint we all had to use as kids. Alright. So I'm actually pretty happy with how this is going. So I think I've used this big, giant ass brush enough now. I need to start thinking about details. Been painting for about an hour. I know I scheduled the event until 2, but I don't expect you guys to stay for a whole 2 hours watching me paint and just talk to myself, unless you find it that stimulating. Let me think. After each stage in a painting, I'll kind of like step back and look at it and think about what I think it needs next. So I've cleaned off my thick brushes. I'm wondering if now I need to start getting a little experimental. I feel like that actually might be the right step, is getting a little bold and experimental here. So I'm going to show you some other techniques that I've learned, either through teaching myself or through classes, largely through just goofing off like I am right now. So I'm going to take... I'm not sure about this brush. Let me think here. What kind of brush do I want? What I'm basically going to do is I'm going to flick and splatter my painting a bit. Maybe even pour some paint. I just need to think. Alright. So I've got this palette which has the most space on it, and I've got an enormous amount of unused white. So I'm going to scoop my white onto this blank palette and try and avoid the colored red bits. Okay, so I've got this little patch of white here. And now, to water this down and make it easier to, like, flick, I'm going to take my clean water, put my brush in my clean, nice water that I haven't really colored. I'm just going to water this way down, like, way, way, way down. I think if I do a painting video next time, oh, and thanks, Jackalope. I'm really glad that you are actually learning about it. It intimidates a lot of people, abstract painting, but, you know, I find it to be, honestly, a much more forgiving and easier way to start learning about art. And that's something I enjoyed about the art school I went to in New Zealand for a semester. This was how they taught art. They did the abstract stuff first, because frankly it was easier than trying to compare your, you know, very first brush strokes to a perfect real object. You know, you kind of got a feel for the thought process behind art and defining how you want to make your art and stuff like that, which is really, in my opinion, more important than anything else when you want to become an artist, is, you know, how you make your art and how it makes you feel and why you do it in a certain way. Excuse me, why you do it in a certain way. So what I'm going to do is test this, and I have to be careful because last time this is not the first time I've done this at my desk, and there is paint permanently splattered on my computer monitor facing that way, so I need to be a little careful. But I'm going to test the splatter first on the cardboard. I'm going to try and show you guys. Alrighty. And it was a little tiny baby splatter, so I think I need more water. Too much water and the paint will look like thin and sad and runny, but not enough, and it won't really do the splatter effect. Okay, that's not bad. More water. And usually if I'm splattering, I like really overload the brush with paint, like just totally like that. There we go. That's a bit better. But I can see some lumps in here, so, and I don't care about the backs of my canvases, so I'm just going to set this right on top of the wet paint so you guys can see. Alright, we're going to see how this goes. We'll see if the paint is watery or not. Splat! Splat! If I had like a giant fancy art studio with a lot of space and a huge drop cloth, I'd just go at it with like the biggest dry brush I could find, but I don't have that. I've got a carpet in this little office space and my husband shares it, and I don't think he wants his precious work area covered in paint. God, when I was a kid, I once did this for the first time. I was like 8. I was in my grandparents' basement just sort of painting at an easel that they had set up. And I had the brilliant idea of, you know, like, oh, I'm going to try splatter paint for the very first time, right now. And I did it, and my mom came downstairs, and she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing splatter paint, and I was so proud of it, and she said, Lindsay, look at the wall behind the easel, and my grandparents have these crisp, perfect white walls, and I looked behind the wall, and it was just covered in splatter paint. So I made this beautiful art piece, but ruined the wall, so I spent the next 20 minutes hand scrubbing all that paint off of the wall. And it was so bad that I think my mom was like, you have to do this before your grandparents see. You know, you have this number of minutes before they're gonna probably come down here and see what you've done and be really upset. So that was fun. Let's see. I'm just trying to, like, make extra paint, because I think I'd like to make extra paint. That doesn't make sense. I'm trying to water down this paint a bit more, because I'd like to try a very small, very basic paint pour. I know that's, like, all the craze these days. I like to use it sort of as an accent to my work. I don't really, I I'm not good enough at it, and I don't enjoy the process enough to make an entire piece, a paint pour piece. I like to, you know, literally get my hands in there, and there's something about the physical distance of paint pouring, where you're just pouring the cups and then kind of tilting the canvas, that I don't like as an artist. I love the art that people make with paint pouring, but it's not my cup of tea. Alright, so I've kind of got this, so here's my MacGyver process for paint pouring. Thanks for the thumbs up, Simon. So, where do I want it? Where do I want it? I think I'm going to want it, like, kind of here. So I'm going to kind of scrape it. Moment of truth. Splat. And I'm going to raise it up higher, actually. That makes kind of a droplet look. Yeah, and I know if you were to get into paint pouring, the trick here to get that cool sort of marbling effect, and I actually, this is something that apparently everyone knows and you could have just found out on the internet, but I just was like, whoa, I figured it out on my own when most people knew it. Mix it with Elmer's glue. Mix this stuff with Elmer's glue and some water until you get the viscosity you want. And just layer and layer the paint pours, and that's how you'll get those really cool, like, marbly effects if you get into paint pouring. Gorilla Glue is what I used for the sculpture I showed in my live studio tour last weekend. Gorilla Glue works. I enjoy using Gorilla Glue with paint because it makes like a really thick, like, it could look like blood once it dries, but it looks wet when it dries, you know, which is cool. Alright, so I'm just cleaning off my brush. Cleaned it in the dirty water first, and now I'm cleaning it in my not so clean water, but it's just white. It's not gonna taint any white paint. I don't think. I hope not. So yeah, I've got kind of this freaky splatter thing going here. I wonder if I tilt it, if it'll drip at all. It might not. Acrylic paint, oh, there's a little bit of dripping going. I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna shake it, kind of help it along. Acrylic paint does not usually drip very easily, unless there's a lot of it or it's super watered down. I think you'll notice that some of my art has, I'm gonna get it into frame for you so you guys can see. I think you'll notice that some of my art has a lot of sort of graffiti style influences. As I explained in my studio tour last week, I learned about graffiti for the first, like, graffiti art, street art, stuff like that in middle school. My art teacher Nan did a whole class on it over the summer, and it was amazing. I cannot do spray paint. I tried so hard. I even tried at home after the class had ended on a piece of plywood. My parents were very nice and let me do that, and I just could not get the hang of it. But these kinds of splatter effects and drips, you'll see that all the time in a lot of street art with spray paint, and I can't get over it. I'm just obsessed with it. So let's see. I feel like I really like how it's going, but it needs, composition-wise, I feel like it needs something substantial and concrete for the eye to rest on. This looks nice, but I want there to be at least one piece in here that's like, I know what that is. It is this thing. It's an object. So I'm trying to think. So at this point, I could keep going with paint, or I could break the mold and do something with multimedia, which inevitably seems to happen all the time with my paintings, and was not scheduled for today, but I don't know, it kind of feels like that might be the right thing to do next. First, though, I think I need some white up here to balance it out, so I'm gonna mix up some more paint. I'm so happy so many of you tuned in, even if you weren't able to stay the whole time. Like, this was more than I ever expected people would join for this live stream, so thank you guys. Alrighty, now the process of watering down the white again. Lots and lots of water. I'm just gonna drip I dare not pour straight onto the palette, because if I get any water onto these blue parts, it'll turn my nice white paint blue. And something about white paint is it's very opaque, so you can kind of see the transparency of like the blue paint and stuff here. Once you mix that blue with white, it's like a pretty light blue, but it is solid. Like it'll be opaque. Same thing with watercolor paints. So you gotta be. I'm always very careful and strategic with white. I find white to be one of the most difficult paints to work with. Could be I'm just not experienced enough with it, but that's just been my experience. And I am adding water off screen here. It's just, I need a lot for this part. If I want a substantial, paint splatter, which I'm already splattering, but not my painting. Everything but the painting is being splattered at this moment. I swear to God, I've got the world's most patient husband. I've got, like, out in our living room, I've got, like, this little square foot of space on the floor that's just, like, a half-empty can of gold spray paint, and a bunch of rhinestones that I've glued together into gems, and some cut-up plastic pieces, and I don't know what I'm using them for, but they're out there for when inspiration strikes. And he's just like, yeah, okay, you can leave that there. There was spray foam insulation out there at one point. That was fun. I did ruin quite a few clothes trying to use that stuff, but it is a very fun medium to work with if you can wrangle it, which it does take a lot of wrangling. This part's kind of boring. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm just trying to water this down. I don't want so much paint that it just literally whitewashes the whole thing, although that could be kind of a cool effect, I don't know. But this is still not runny enough to just pour. And again, this is something I just experimented with until I felt comfortable enough doing it over and over again. And everyone learns differently. I'm not saying you can only experiment to learn about art or how to do it the way you want. Like, that's the beauty of the modern era, is that there's so many free art resources online. Like, it's like Valhalla for artists. But I've always been very much a do-it-yourselfer. Again, that whole feeling of being able to, like, get in with my own two hands and make something from scratch that maybe no one else has ever made. Alright, so this is pretty runny, and I've got a lot of it. So you know what? I'm gonna be kind of bold here. I'm gonna try and keep this in frame for you guys. I'm gonna kind of just spill along this top edge and tilt. Yeah, that's what I want. And I can see that the colors underneath the white are going to show through, but that's okay with me. This is very much taking a street art kind of edge, kind of angle, which I don't mind. And I'm going to wash this brush while that's doing its thing, so it doesn't dry. Rule of thumb, for anyone who doesn't know, don't let acrylic paint dry in your brushes. It will ruin them. Basically, if you get acrylic paint on anything and it dries, it's going to be there more or less forever. Sometimes with things like vinyl desktops or something, you can take some rubbing alcohol and wipe it off, scrub it off, or scrape it first. But fabric, like you can see here, like it's on there forever and ever. So always good rule of thumb to just don't wear anything you wouldn't want permanently ruined potentially while you're painting. Wash off your brushes, etc. It does come off your skin just fine though. And you'll notice I'm wearing my wedding ring, and it actually comes off the ring just fine too. At least the one I have. So, no, I'm not crazy. Let's see. What I'm gonna do now, actually, I know I keep saying I'm gonna do something cool next, but what I'm gonna do now is, woo, I've still got some leftover white here that I can see. I promise we're starting to wrap up towards the end. I know it's been a long, long live stream, and I think a lot of you have signed off, but I still appreciate you all being here. I'm gonna take the back of my brush. This is, again, something I've learned to do, so if I want to get kind of a swirly thing going, but I don't want to blend the paint like here, I'll just take the back of the brush, or just a dowel, or the back of a pencil, basically anything with kind of a blunt point, and I'll kind of just swirl it. This isn't perfect, but, you know. And then I'll wipe the end off there so it doesn't get everywhere. And then I'm going to try this again, because I think some blue might be cool to add here. Woo! So let's see if I can get this to drip the way I want it to. Yeah. So you see how the brush blends it? Oh, you can't see because I'm out of frame. Oh no, that's okay. Scraping it. Woo! Here we go. Yeah. So I definitely like that streaky blue look that's happening. I'm gonna put down my brush. No, don't stop dripping. I need more of you. I talk to my art like it's a person. It's fine, I'm not crazy. Woo! So now it's kind of dripping wherever it wants, and you know what? I'm actually cool with that. What would Bob Ross say right now? Happy little paint drips? I don't know, guys. Let's see here. Whoops. Ugh. I'm gonna give it the little shake to see if I can help it out, because if I add water, I'm worried it's just gonna... Well, maybe I will add some water, just a little bit. And use the white kind of... Yeah, no. No. Don't like that. See how it's like getting all watery there? Oh. Actually. I'm just gonna let it happen. I'm just gonna sit back and let it happen before I do anything. Again, accidents. Shake it a little more. Do you guys remember that song from high school? Shake, shake, shake it. I set that as my alarm for so long in high school, and I don't know why, because it was a not a song you'd think of waking up to, but I think that's why I did it on purpose. Like, it's like, oh, this is not what I want to hear right now. I need to turn it off. Like, I love the song, but it's, you know, about sex with a girl, and it's not something you wake up to on a Tuesday and go, oh, I feel refreshed and ready for school. Anyway, any young people listening to this right now are like, what is she talking about? I don't even know. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I still feel like it needs something like here. Something in the middle to draw the eye in. And then I'll feel like it's kind of complete. Trying to think here. This is where I'll start looking through my little drawers of stuff. I'd show you the drawers, but I've MacGyvered my phone camera with wire to my mic stand, so I can't really move it around. I do have this ancient book. This was an altered book I started. I have a hard time with altered books because, like, it's defacing a book, and I love books. My mom's a librarian. She treated books with religious reverence. But this was an exercise that I learned again, from Nan, my elementary art school teacher, so there's some cool colors and textures and stuff like that, and here's the stuff that I haven't really worked on, and then I kind of lost momentum, because I just felt bad about defacing a book. So, I'm wondering if I could cut something out of here. Actually, these guys right here. I actually would not mind that at all. The real question is, do I feel like defacing my my hard worked on altered book? You know I do. This is why I keep old art around. I feel like, you know, eventually the art will have another purpose. Do I have scissors in here? I don't think I do, because I wasn't planning on cutting anything today. So, okay, I'm gonna shift this a little bit. This is how art goes off the rails for me. I'll be like, oh, I'll just get in the moment and start doing crazy stuff. So, what I'm gonna do... Avert your eyes if you don't want to see me tear this page. I got this in a free box. You know, it's not like I took it from a library. And it's not like it's an old edition of the last book of its copy. So, I still to this day, it's just like, the blasphemy. But when I get in the flow and I kind of get an idea, you know, it just feels right when I need to do something, especially with an old art piece that I haven't been able to finish. It's like, oh, you finally have a home now. And I'm tearing it, and I'm okay with that because I don't mind this organic line, because there's so many organic lines in this thing already. So, yeah. Actually, that tear was very, very much nicer than I thought it would be. So, acrylic paint also adheres things very, very thoroughly to any surface. I'll probably Mod Podge this when I'm done. Let me think here. What else? It needs something behind it. If I just put it on here like this, it's gonna just look kind of like, well, like a piece of paper, just attached to the painting. It needs some kind of border or color around it to, like, ground it, like, this is part of the painting. And this, I think, is where that touch of just pure black might come in. Because I think I might just do, like, a big old paint pour right here, stick this in it, and then tilt it to let the drips fall. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to rifle through my excess of paint palettes, and I've got this nice big empty space here. I always buy more than one tube of black paint or white paint at a time, because these two colors, black and white, you're going to use more than any other. Eventually, I'd like to think I'll have the money to just get one of those huge, like, gallon jugs of acrylic paint in each primary color in black and white, and then I will be set for the next, I hope, at least couple of years. Okay. So, I need to wash off my old brush, because I did not do that before. Luckily, the paint did not dry, and it was just my dollared brush. If I had gotten acrylic paint to dry on one of my mom's brushes, I don't know if I would ever forgive myself. Paint brushes are expensive, guys, if you want to spring for the really high-quality ones. You treat them like babies. So, to mix this black paint and water it down, I'm going to use my filthy gross dark paint, dark water, because it's black paint. It's not gonna show the water. And in this case, because my heart's racing right now because I'm in a good flow and I'm excited about the work. So to speed it up a little bit so I don't lose momentum, I'm gonna very carefully, so carefully, just pour a little bit of that water straight on there. It's also black paint, so if another color mixes in with this, I'm not worried, because I can just add more black to wash it out. So if I had accidentally gotten water on the red or something, then I really would not have cared. It's a different story with black than white. Okay. So I actually have even more ideas, but I'm going to get this black down first. So I'm just going to pour it flat to start with. Yep, right in the middle. That's actually exactly where I wanted it, which makes me very happy. I'm almost close to done, guys. Woohoo! You stuck with me the whole time. I appreciate it so much. So I got a nice huge puddle of black there. I'm gonna rinse off this brush again, and what I'm gonna actually do next is blue. I'm gonna actually pool white on top and then blue, and then I'm gonna spread it around, and I'll show you. I'll show you guys. I'm not gonna try and articulate this process while I'm half conscious in the flow of things. I won't make any sense. Basically, we're gonna get watered down white again. And I'm already like a quarter of the way through these white and black containers, so I'm really glad I bought extra at the dollar store. This water is blue now, so it's gonna turn my white a little bit blue, but that's okay because I'm also gonna add some blue paint to this little puddle here in the middle. So again, I'm gonna just very carefully add a larger amount of water to this to speed the process along, because I don't want to lose the flow of my work right now. That's okay. You know what? The blue is getting mixed in from here, but you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Ugh. Paint looks so gross when you're first mixing it into a fluid. It just looks like curdled cheese. Like, gross. Stop it. I'm gonna mix it more vigorously so I don't have to look at that. Blend. Blend. These people have been so patient. I want to show them a finished product. Okay. That is a lot of white paint, but you know what? That's actually okay. So, it's not a neat glob like I was hoping, but that's okay. Alright, and then last of all, I'm gonna put some blue in the middle there. Rinsing off my brush again. Ugh. And this stuff is actually dry now completely, so it's not going to blend with any colors I add. So I'm just going to put my blue there. And I'm going to use... I am going to use this sort of white-ish water to mix it. Because I'd rather it light blue mix with dark blue than my weird orangey red water mix with blue to make weird orangey purple. Oh, I love blue so much, you guys. There's just certain colors that just like trigger my eye, and it makes me want to cry. It's like when I go to gem museums. I love geology and gems. Azurite, let me see, azurite and certain kinds of jadeite have these just intense, beautiful blues, and it just makes me want to cry whenever I see them. Okay, this blue goes in the middle of my puddle, I hope. Yeah, like that. So I've got like a huge mass of paint in the middle here. So now, moment of truth, I'm going to try spreading it around, and this is very similar to paint pouring, only I'm not going to try and cover the whole canvas, but I'm just going to tilt it back and forth, and you can see how clumpy that white is. I should have mixed it better, but that's okay. So I'm kind of just trying to make a spot for my little painting thing to go. Excuse me, I'm not using right words. For this little cutout of a paper thing to go. Everyone's probably going, but you're working on a painting, Lindsay. What are you talking about? Like, you're all getting a glimpse of what it's like to live with me. This is how I talk to my husband. I need to put the thing with the stuff and do the thing, and he's like, what are you talking about? So yeah, you can kind of, I'll hold it up close, you can kind of see the cool sort of marbling thing that's happening. Just trying to think if I want to take it any farther than that. Let me think here. what I'm gonna do here, this still needs a border. It's not gonna stand out enough on that little patch. So I'm gonna put some more black down, and I'm actually just gonna run the edge of this through here. And this is pure experimentation, guys, what I'm doing right now. Like, I haven't really done this before, but I'm like, oh, this will work if I just run the edge through this paint. That'll be cool. Whoops. And when it dries, it'll kind of have that cool, like, three-dimensionality to the paint there. This little edge down here is going to be tricky, but I can get it. There, you know what? That's close enough. Okay, so now it's got a literal border around it, so it'll stand out a little more. So I'm honestly just gonna boop, drop it in like that, push it down a little bit so it will stick. And I'll probably Mod Podge or varnish this when it's done. Otherwise, it will get dusty and dull and sad looking. And I'm actually now going to tilt this down, holding that little paper guy in place. And I'll let these huge dollops just drip off onto my cardboard. This is why I always have my cardboard. Drip, 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 drip. Drip. Alright. I like all your smiley faces, Simon. I just now saw them. Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna tilt it sideways, too, to get some of this to drip a little bit this way, and that's okay if it bleeds over on this side here. Also this way. Drip, darn you, drip. I know you can. Drip. I'm an impatient artist. I'm not... Some artists are like so patient and can do such amazing things with patience, but my style is kind of messy like this because I'm not patient. This is why I really struggled with oil paints. That's another medium I really just can't get a handle on because you have to let each layer dry. You have to. And you can't layer like this, really, like I did with the acrylics. You have to paint literally. It's hard to explain. Maybe someday I can show you guys. There, I kind of like my weird, you know, which way is gravity going kind of look with these drops. I'm gonna wipe these huge droplets off of my cardboard, not because I'm worried about the cardboard, but when it dries, if my painting is on it, it'll just stick. It'll make my painting adhere to the cardboard. Let me think here. Do I need something else, guys? I don't know. I think two of you are with me right now. Do you guys have any suggestions on what to do next? I'd totally love to hear what you have to say after listening to me ramble for an hour and a half. If I had, like, foil or something, I'd want to, like, make it sparkly somehow. I don't mind using glitter on stuff like this, but sparingly. You know, I like to use it, again, like an accent. That noise, or the rifling noise right now, is me going through my art supplies to see if I have anything I could maybe use. Oh, I just thought of something, actually. Oh, well, I'm glad you like a jackalope. That's totally fine. I actually have, and I've been literally holding on to this. I'm not kidding. Literally holding on to it since elementary school. This is how long I'll hold on to art. And I'm so happy I finally have a use for it, and that you guys get to see it. You have no idea how excited I am right now. Look. Alrighty. So this, if you see this, this is paper. Not that I literally made in elementary school, but we basically tie-dyed tissue paper. And I've been holding on to this stuff since I was 8, God, how old was I? Maybe 8 or 7 years old. Because I just couldn't bear to part with it, and I knew it needed some kind of purpose, and I think today it finally might have that purpose. So first I need to pick out which colors I like. And no, thanks Songs by Tony. I'm glad you like it. I like the colors and the texture in this one, and it's already torn, so we'll put that one there. Let's see here. I genuinely cannot believe that I might be able to use this stuff today. I'm so happy. I'm liking the greens and the blues in this one. And like this stuff gives you an idea of the amazing things my art teacher in elementary school would have us do. Nan, she had us do graffiti classes. We tie-dyed and made our own paper. Like, the altered book stuff was something she taught me. She's just absolutely amazing. I'd love to start teaching art someday like she taught art, because it really changed my life and saved it. And I like this guy too, and I think that's enough to start with. Since I'm just doing accent pieces, really. And thanks, Metropolis Music. Yes, crafting is very cool. Oh, I don't know what I'd do without it. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take advantage of these wet parts of the paint. I'm going to... Can't believe I just tore that so casually after holding on to it for so long. So what I'm actually going to do here, I'm going to make this a little bit of a thinner strip. I'm going to take these straight edges. I'm going to kind of like put them in like this. And you know, they're absorbing the paint, but I actually don't mind because you can still kind of see the colors. And look at how cool that little, you guys can't see it. I'm going to hold it up for you. Look at how here we go. How the pattern in the paint marbling is showing through the tissue paper. I think that's killer. That's the kind of thing you get by just goofing around. Like, I didn't even know that was going to happen. So put this guy here. Whoa! Oh, that's so cool. You kind of got like a... Let me see if I can show you here. You kind of got like a cool gradient thing going there too. And that's a little too thick. There we go. It's a little better. Put this one like here. Oh. I'm so excited, you guys. The real question here is, should I sell this piece when I'm done or just hang on to it? I'm never sure. I've tried to sell art in the past, and not everyone really wants to purchase it, even though they think it's cool. I don't know. If you guys have suggestions on what I could do with this in the future, I am open to hearing them. Maybe it could be another album cover, something like that. I'm just going to keep putting down these pieces of paper and these colors. Oh, it's so cool. Ah! Alright, now I'm going to move on to, I think, this pinky purple paper. If you think about where we started, this was just like yellow and orange, and holy cow, it's not anything like that anymore. It's pretty bonkers sometimes to look back at what I've done and think, this is absolutely nothing like how I thought it would turn out. So I'm going to put this one here. Ah, that's such a cool effect. I'm learning so much from this today. There's that. I'll put this one down here. here. Woo, didn't mean to streak that. That's okay. It'll be fine. See, there's my old catchphrase. It'll be fine. If I say it's fine, everything will be fine. I'm sure my husband's in the other room listening to me rolling his eyes. I think I need another little strip there. I think next painting session I do with you guys, I'll do another art session because you guys seem to like this, but I'll try and do something a little more interactive. I'll have to figure that out. I'm still thinking of ways to do that because, as you can tell, there's an enormous lag whenever I do an Instagram live video. I'll probably switch to using Twitch some other time. I'm gonna put this guy up here. See what happens. Ah! So cool! That looks awesome. Instagram is also giving me very confusing stats on how many people are watching. I've seen so many of you sign on, which is amazing, and it just keeps telling me I have like one person watching. So, regardless, I've seen at least 10 different people sign on today, so I really appreciate you just giving me a chance. Ah, that wasn't lined up perfectly, but you know what? I'm still okay with it. I had no idea I'd make something this cool today, guys. You inspired me. Thank you. I'm gonna put this guy here. He's kind of a fiery. Don't smear. Kind of a fiery color and texture. I think I need some little skinny guys, kind of to pull that color down right here. There we go. That doesn't look so so forced now. That hard edge. This is probably one of my favorite pieces of art I've made in a long time. And it's genuinely thanks to you guys. I wouldn't have done this or pushed myself this far without you guys being here. I just realized I haven't used this sort of bluey green paper yet. Where do I want to put it though? Maybe here? Works. Excuse me. I imagine when this is dry too, I'm gonna go back in with Sharpie and add some extra detailing. That's just my gut feeling here. I almost always do that. After I finish a painting, I add little details with Sharpie. I don't know. I can't decide if this is done. It's starting to feel like it's done. That's definitely something that takes practice in art, is knowing when you're done. I know when I first started doing art, you know, Nan, our art teacher in elementary school, she said, you know, she was always so blunt and straightforward, but in a nice way. Like, she never made anyone cry, but she was just like, well, these are the facts, deal with it, even though we were like 6. I remember her saying, you know, when you're an experienced artist, then you can leave blank spaces. But you guys are 6, and you're not experienced artists, so you have to fill your entire page every time you make a drawing or a painting. I don't want to see empty space, because that means you just gave up halfway. Like, that's just how she told it to us. But the way she delivered it, like her tone of voice or something, we were always just like, them's the breaks, alright, Nan's just telling us how it is. So I still kind of stick to that philosophy in my art. Like, I usually ask myself, would this be further improved if I added just a little more? Is there any blank space that's not really serving a purpose. That's just superfluous. Yeah. I see we're almost out of time. Thank you again for all of you who tuned in, even for just a little bit, or for who, especially for those of you who stuck with me through this whole wild ride. I hope it was engaging and fun and interesting to see. I just love the little like rainbow effects of this one, this paper here, so I'm just adding little pieces of it places. Downside of the tissue paper is it's going to reduce the shine on the acrylic, but if I varnish it afterwards with Mod Podge, it'll bring the gloss back up, which is good because this feels like a piece that needs to be glossy and kind of extra. Look at me trying to use young people lingo. Oh no! Yeah, I turned 29 in 2 weeks, guys. I feel old. Although not really, you know, like I know a lot of people. I met someone in one of my jobs who said she cried on her 30th birthday. And I felt so bad for her. You know, because I feel like you should just be happy. Like, holy cow, 30 years, that's a lot of life to live, and I survived it just fine. Like, that's kind of how I get through my birthdays. You know, I was a little depressed at one point that I'll be turning 29, but, you know, a lot of you already know a lot about my life story, but I never thought I'd make it this long, you know. I genuinely thought there were many times last year where I thought last year was my last year of life, and it wasn't, so I'm gonna have a fun something or other for my birthday. I don't know what. It'll be a sober party, which means everyone goes to bed at 9 because we're tired and and we're old, but it'll be fun. Okay, this is close to done. I'm kind of just adding little tiny details now. I don't know if any of you are still following along, but this is like when sometimes people are like, why do you sweep under your rug? No one sees it. And you're like, well, I know what's going to be there. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm sure some people would say this is perfect just the way it is, but I just feel like it needs a little touching up, especially up here. I don't like this sort of white edge showing. Thank you, Jackalope Run. I'm glad you stuck the whole time, Jackalope Run. That's too big of a piece. That's not gonna work. We'll try this little piece. Yeah. Okay. This is getting there. I'm almost done. I know I've been saying that for like an hour. In elementary school, my husband and I went to the same elementary school, and we were very lucky because it was a private school. Not like... People kind of get a certain idea in their head when they hear that. I promise it wasn't... We did get to do a lot of cool stuff, but it wasn't like a super preppy school, which in itself I don't think is a bad thing. That's a different rant for me, and I'm putting a dollop of white under this one to help it stick. That's a separate rant for me, but it, you know, people look down on private schools, and it's always up to the family, in my opinion, and the parent, what your child gets out of private school and how they develop. But anyway, long story short, we went on a lot of cool camping trips every year with our classes, and my husband and I, at different times, had the same middle school teacher, Mr. Martin. I don't know if he's on here. I think he maybe said he might tune in. But anyway, we'd go on these hiking trips while we were camping with him. And, you know, we're like a bunch of angsty 12-year-olds being forced to hike through the Rocky Mountains at altitude. And we'd always get so tired, and we'd be like, Mr. Martin, how much farther? And his thing was just 10 more minutes. Just 10 more minutes. Just 10 more minutes. You know, he'd say it like 6 times. Just 10 more minutes. So it worked, though, because he ended up getting us all to walk like 10 miles per hike at the age of like 12 when you don't want to do anything. And hi, Paul. T Lino. I think that's what your username is, but nice of you to join. I'm almost done here. I'm just adding these little tissue paper details, spur of the moment inspiration. And Jackalope, I'm glad I inspired you. I don't know if I already said that. Maybe I did. Okay. Oh, here we go. I knew I was missing one of these drips. What? I need to put something. That little just blank white guy, like this little white drip is just staring at me like, love me! I'm so boring! Here you go. Now you're not boring. Okay. So, you know, I think this is as far as I can get today. But I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. I was worried I would just crumble in front of you guys and not know what to do, but holy cow. This exceeded my expectations, and you guys really helped inspire me to do this. And this is the first time I've shared live my art process. So I'm just really happy you guys decided to be a part of it. That means so much to me. I'm planning to do more stuff like this in the future. Again, if you happen to feel generous or have the means, there's a PayPal link in my Facebook invite for this event. Otherwise, my Instagram, the link in my Instagram bio takes you to a link tree which has all of my music on all the streaming platforms that it's available on. You know, you can stream my music to help support my work, or you can buy it on Bandcamp, or if you're an artist looking for beats, or even like art graphic design services. I've got some pages up on BeatStars where you can hire me to work with that stuff. I work with any budget to the best of my ability. You know, that doesn't mean that I'll be able to produce and mix and master and, you know, do an entire album for $5, but I will always do as much as I possibly can for however much you're able to, you know, pay. So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will see you again probably next week. I think I'm going to make a live stream weekly. I'll have to figure out what next week's stream is, but yeah, in the meantime, have a great weekend. Love you all as always. Bye! Now I have to figure out how to turn off my live stream. I don't know if I know how. Okay, bye guys.